Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to this week's overview of our English 101 course. I hope you had a great weekend, got to enjoy some of the sunshine, and today we're going to be talking about your essay. Hooray! You thought it was never coming, but it's here, and we are so excited. So if you take a look at our calendar for this week, today you should be reviewing our Project 1 essay prompt, rubric, and outline. Those are all designed to help you be successful as you approach this essay. You're also going to be turning in a thesis worksheet. This is designed to help you really cement your ideas, write them in a clear and concise fashion so that you can engage an audience, make sure you have a clear and arguable statement, and you make sure that all of those key elements are present in that thesis statement, because we know the thesis needs to be the last sentence of the introduction. It should be one sentence long, and it needs to accomplish a bunch of things. And so that thesis worksheet helps us, kind of serves as a checklist, helps us make sure that we have all of those elements present. Because if you take a look at the rubric, which you should today, you'll see that the thesis statement has a lot of points associated with it in this first essay. So we want to make sure that we're writing a really solid thesis statement to set ourselves up for success. You are going to begin writing your essay this week. You're going to start writing the first draft of the essay after you've completed your thesis worksheet. I would highly recommend that you create an outline. So perhaps write your outline on Tuesday, start drafting the essay, write a couple paragraphs on Wednesday, write a couple paragraphs on Thursday, because on Friday you're going to need to submit a draft of your essay for peer review. We want to give our classmates a chance to take a look at our work. They can be a safety net for us, help us catch any errors that might have slipped into our writing. I know we're all excellent writers and probably our drafts will be perfect, but just in case that's not true, the peer review session will help us get some of those errors caught and some suggestions shared for making the essay stronger before we start heading into the final draft. So we're going to have one round of peer review on the 8th. I've got instructions for that in the discussion board. Then we're going to do one more round of peer review on the 11th. You're going to be revising your essay all of next week and then turning in that final draft. So you do have some time to work on this essay, but I would highly recommend avoiding procrastination as much as possible. And this is coming from a professional procrastinator, right? It's hard to motivate ourselves sometimes to spread out the work, but in terms of the quality of your end product, I think that you're going to find that quality is much higher if you give yourself some time to write and then some time to revise. So that's why we've got this schedule set out for us to really help us invest in this project and help us perform at our very highest level. So I want to take a look at some of these resources for you. All of those, of course, are located in our modules tab. So let's go to our class, our handy dandy modules tab. Hopefully you're very familiar with this by now. Once again, we finished the diagnostic articles, so we're moving down into our Project 1 Murder on the Orient Express folder. We've listened to a lot of these excellent lectures so far, so now we are moving into our essay portion. Oops, scroll down too far. Here we go. The essay, right here at the bottom. We've completed our compare and contrast free write activity. The compare and contrast PowerPoint will walk you through our prompt and talk a little bit about compare and contrast as a genre, how it functions, and how you can use this style of writing not only in this academic context, but elsewhere as well. So do make sure to check out that PowerPoint available for you in the modules tab. Then we have our prompt. The prompt I am going to talk about in a video, so do make sure to check that out. I'll be posting it this afternoon. But this compare and contrast essay is going to ask you to look at the terms of revenge and justice. You're going to show the similarities between those terms. You're going to show the differences between those terms, and then you're going to argue which of those terms is the true theme of Agatha Christie's novel and why that's important. She has some complicated stuff that she works with in this novel. She works in a gray area, particularly when you get to the end of the novel. Hercule Poirot is struggling fairly mightily with how to deal with this murder. On one hand, he's kind of okay with what they did, right? He's like, I understand why you wanted this man dead. But on the other hand, murder is bad. And also you stabbed him like 12 times, which seems like overkill. but right, overkill because he's dead because they killed him. It's funny. The puns are for you guys. You're welcome. So crack myself up. Even if you guys don't laugh, we're having a good time. So Hercule Poirot is struggling. This is a moral gray area. Do we punish everybody who stabbed Ratchet, even though Ratchet himself was a murderer and a bad person who killed a small child? Like, we can all agree that's a pretty bad thing to do. So many of us might agree that he deserves to die. As a mother of 2 small children, if somebody hurt one of my babies, I would 100% be in a very stabby mood. So I can kind of understand where they're coming from. But also I can kind of understand where Poirot's coming from, why he's struggling with this, because murder, in any rate, is not something we normally endorse. So he has to struggle with, is this revenge? In which case, do we punish the people doing it? Because most of us agree revenge is kind of bad. Or is it justice? Have they evened the scales by murdering Ratchet? In which case, justice makes us think of the justice system, which makes us think of law and order, which makes us think maybe this is okay. So arguing which term is the true theme of the book has some ramifications. Are we condoning murder or are we condemning it? That's our bottom line. So we want to make sure we're defining those terms and that we're sharing with our reader why we think that's the true theme and what kind of ramifications it might have in the big picture if we justify murder as something that's okay. So take a look at this prompt. I will be going over it in detail. You do need to write at least full pages. I'm going to harp on this a couple more times when you go through the video. But at least 3 full pages. That means in order to be safe, you might just want to put a couple words on the 4th page, right? 3 full pages, and the works cited page does not count as one of those pages. If you're struggling with length, go through the outline. Make sure you're following all the steps of that outline. If you're still struggling with length, pop in a few more quotes, because every time we use a quote in academic writing, we have to put it in a quote sandwich, right? So we have to introduce the quote with our own words. We give the quote, we make sure it's cited in MLA format, and then we talk about how that quote supports our argument. So every time you use a quote, not only do you add the length of the quote, but you also add the sentence introducing it and at least 1 or 2 sentences following that explain how it connects to your argument. So that'll bump up your length real quickly. So if you're struggling with length, add a couple more quotes. Do make sure to put those quotes in the quote sandwich and make sure to cite those quotes appropriately. You are going to have a well-crafted thesis statement. You're going to need supporting points. You're going to need a works cited page in MLA format. Make sure you're doing all of that in order to earn your maximum amount of points here. So there's our prompt. I will, once again, like I said, talk about that prompt in more detail in a video I'm posting this afternoon. For all of our essays, there is a rubric posted so you can see exactly how it's being scored. Focus, thesis statement, development, support, organization, and structure, mechanics. These are the kind of things I'm looking at. Ability to follow instructions, which is the prompt category. So do take a look at this rubric as you're designing your essay. Make sure it's aligning well with the grading criteria so you can get your maximum amount of points from that. You are going to be working on the thesis worksheet. Today, you're going to be posting that thesis worksheet. And the thesis worksheet asks you to do a couple things. First, I want you to write a definition for the term revenge. Not Merriam-Webster's dictionary or dictionary.com. I want to see your understanding of revenge. So write a definition from your brain. What is revenge? Write a definition. What is justice? Tell me what you think a significant difference between these 2 terms is, and then explain a significant similarity between these 2 terms. And then tell me which one you think is the major theme. Give me a piece of evidence from the book that you think backs you up. And then I want you to write a thesis statement that provides context for your analysis, acknowledges the complexity of both terms, and argues what the implications are if your chosen term is indeed at the heart of Agatha Christie's work. We aren't going to be exchanging these thesis statements, so you can just ignore that bottom portion of the worksheet there. So if I were to give you an example of a thesis statement from Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express, I might do something like this maybe. So we need to have context for the analysis. Context is letting our reader know what our source material is. So we could say something like, in Agatha Christie's novel, Murder on the Orient Express, book titles in MLA format are always italicized. So do make sure to italicize any book titles that you're referencing. So in Agatha Christie's novel, Murder on the Orient Express, this is a dependent clause, so a comma will follow it. And I've got my context here. This tells me what my source material is. It lets the reader know what I'm going to be talking about and who I'm going to be referencing. So in Agatha Christie's novel, Murder on the Orient Express, check, got my context. I want to acknowledge the complexity of both of the terms justice and revenge. So I might say something like, in Agatha Christie's novel, Murder on the Orient Express, the terms of, or perhaps the ideas, see, thesis statement writing is a process, so play with your words. The ideas of revenge and justice are examined in all of their nuanced complexity. There we go. It says this is a complex issue. Trying to define revenge and justice, both are hard, and creating distinctions between the two that we can then prove to the reader is a challenge. So we want to acknowledge that that is a challenge in our thesis statement. So we've got our context. In Agatha Christie's novel, Murder on the Orient Express, the ideas of revenge and justice are examined in all their nuanced complexity. We have acknowledgement of the complexity. Then we want to argue what the implications are if your chosen term is indeed at the heart of Agatha Christie's work. So from your thesis statement, I should know which term you want to argue and why that might be significant. So I might write something like, in Agatha Christie's novel, Murder on the Orient Express, the ideas of revenge and justice are examined in all of their nuanced complexity, forcing the reader to acknowledge the necessary evil, perhaps, of revenge and its impact on the human condition. So there I'm going to say that revenge is the theme of the book. And there's not a right answer to this. I'm not reading your essay thinking, oh, you have to write about revenge. You could 100% successfully argue it's justice as well. That's why I love this book. It depends on your own personal interpretation and how well you can support your evidence. That's all I'm looking for, how well you support your argument. Because you can be 100% right arguing that justice is the theme, and you can be 100% right arguing that revenge is the theme. Just depends on how well you support it. So I've got my context. Agatha Christie's novel, Murder on the Orient Express, check. I've got my acknowledgement of complexity. The ideas of revenge and justice are examined in all their nuanced complexity, check. And then I tell my reader what theme I'm going to argue and why it's important. So forcing the reader to acknowledge the necessary evil of revenge and its impact on the human condition. Ta-da! Thesis statement. Yay! That will get you good points in the rubric category. So invest in this thesis statement worksheet. It's going to help you out immensely when you start writing your essay. The final thing I want to note here for you that's going to help you in your essay is our outline, and that outline is for you here. I'll record the video talking about this outline as well, but take a look at it. Just like we had an outline for our diagnostic essay, you have an outline for this essay as well. So take a look. We've got context and summary, we've got definitions, we have our comparison paragraphs, our contrasting paragraphs, our synthesis, and our conclusion. So make sure that you're following that kind of outline as you work through this essay. And I said that was the final thing, but here's the real final thing. The psychological approach to revenge and justice. You have to use two sources for this essay. One of those sources should be your Murder on the Orient Express novel. Please use that. You need to be quoting that in the essay. But also, please consider using this article by Leon Seltzer, Don't Confuse Revenge with Justice, where he outlines the 5 key differences he thinks are essential in understanding these terms. I would highly recommend, if you haven't already, which I hope you did, carefully reading through this article and considering using several quotes from it in your essay, especially in the definitions paragraphs as you try and define revenge and justice. So that's where we're going this week. We are taking a look at the essay today. You're going to be working on the thesis worksheet. Highly recommend you write your outline tomorrow and then start writing your essay draft. You will be posting in the peer review discussion board by Friday. And that instruction is for you here. You're going to be uploading your essay, and then you're going to be responding using this peer response form. As always, reach out with any questions, guys. Have a great week, and I look forward to seeing your writing.